That's all right.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the First Time Homebuyers Podcast. I am one of your two co-hosts, Tom Sommers with Coldwell Banker Burnett in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Eric McKenna with Remax Advanced in the Pittsburgh area. Eric, how are you, man?
Doing fantastic and great to be here as usual.
We are fired up today, people.
Yes, we are. We got a great subject for you today.
Yes, so today we are going to talk about time is of the essence, what it means, and time management within the contract, specific purchase agreement itself moving into the inspection. So, Eric, fire away, man.
Absolutely. One of the things that is a very important component of the responsibility that Tommy and I have as realtors is to move the process along and make sure you, our client, are abiding by contractually all the time frames that are within a contract. It's imperative. Case in point, when we put an offer in for you, typically, and I can only speak for Pennsylvania, but typically it's customary, unless there's different excruciating circumstances that are very difficult, it's customary to ask the seller to respond to us in approximately between 24 to 48 hours. We're asking.
Let me stop you, though.
Sure,
Do you
sure.
put that into a purchase agreement?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay. So please explain exactly why you use that language.
Oh, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. In Pittsburgh, one of the things that we do right in the beginning of the contract, obviously, is what we're going to offer. Any seller assist, and we won't get into that, of course. Any unique terms, the settlement date on the same page, which is the closing date, and then we actually have a place to request. It's a request. It can be a walk away if you choose as a buyer to use it, but generally, I like to state to my clients, it's a request that we ask the seller to respond back to us, at least respond to us, even if they don't have an answer yet, within 24 to 48 hours. I try to tend to have my clients ask for the 48 or give the 48 to the seller, but it's important because what if you're looking at a couple different properties and you have your eye on two, and this seems to be the preferred one, but there might be you might be under an agreement, or you might be under pressure to put an offer on another property if this one doesn't work out, because that property might have multiple offers, and you don't want two offers out there at the same time. That's all. We could do a whole show on how dangerous that is, of course. So we, as your agent, want to concentrate on one property at a time. So we ask the seller in a timely fashion to respond. Typically, they respond with an answer that's concrete, yes or no. And if they're going to no, they often counter. Sometimes they'll respond back and say, hey, we just can't make the decision. It's a multiple person decision and one person's traveling in. But at least what that does for us is that opens up communication. And that shows, and this proves to the buyer or the seller that, hey, we got a viable contract in-house. We're working, we're massaging it. It's always positive. But us as the buyers, we want to put that in there and ask them to get back in a timely fashion. At least in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and we don't see it as often here in Minnesota, although it does happen, but maybe it's because I live in the land of passive aggressiveness. I'm not really sure. But it can be very, very effective, and it goes back to the time is of the essence, because it's really an open-ended clause. And what it essentially means is this, that all parties that are involved in this contract agree that we will try to move forward in a timely fashion to do our contingencies and do our due diligence. But that can get lost on certain people at times, specifically sellers. And the thing that you don't want to do is get trapped into a situation where they see your offer, and then even if you came in at full price, there's a lot of people who still think it's worth more. Well, it's like, okay, if you think your house is worth more, then why didn't you just price it that way to start with? So Eric's solution is to get you out within 48 hours, which would definitely work. But, the thing is that the process of purchasing a house, there's no rules. So you could have a motivated buyer and a motivated seller, and we could literally put a purchase agreement together inside of 5-6 hours. Or I've negotiated some of them for 2 weeks. Sometimes you literally have to dig your heels in the sand and walk away and say, look, I'm going to think about this. And it's putting them on ice.
Sure.
And give that seller an opportunity to really think hard as to whether they want to let this one walk.
That's exactly right. And I think the great thing that Tommy mentioned is, and I think what he was leading to, I just didn't give him a chance to say it, is that everything in real estate is a negotiation.
Yes.
Everything. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a very powerful thing, because a lot of industries, believe it or not, that's not the way it is. But in real estate, every step of the process is a negotiation. And if both sides are agreeable to an extension of time, perfectly fine. And oftentimes they both have the same goal. They both want to close on the property. We may have disputes on pricing or we'll move into next, which will be inspections. But ultimately, everything is a negotiation. If you have two willing parties to get there, it's our job to make it as easy, but at the same time, move toward closing, especially for you, Mr. Buyer, to move toward closing. So it's a delicate job, and I think the great agents are able to effectively do it.
Yeah, and we'll tell you the whole process as we go. We'll explain all the paperwork and we'll explain the steps, but we don't expect you to remember any of it because this isn't what you do for a living. Just know one thing. If you're working with a qualified real estate agent that knows what they're doing, it is their job to make sure that you meet all of those contingencies and get to those things as quickly as possible to give you the amount of time you need to make decisions. So one of the things that Eric said he wanted to discuss was an inspection, not the inspection per se, but where that falls in the timeline. What did you want to say about that?
Sure, and again, Tommy may have to reflect on the laws in his state. With Pennsylvania real estate law, generally speaking, it's accepted that from the moment you come under agreement that you have 10 business days, even that's debatable, roughly 10 days to get your inspector in there, get the response back or the reply, or get your report from the inspector, review it with your agent, and then get with or formally reply to the seller asking for any deficiencies to be fixed, created. From there, the back and forth is a little funny because it almost allows for each back and forth 5 days. Now, if you had multiple back and forths and each party took 5 days, it's not going to work too good because that's going to be heading and encroaching right toward closing. So each agent generally can do these things, sometimes 2 responses in 1 day. It's our job to push the process forward the best we can. And usually it's not a problem.
Yeah,
usually not a problem.
And we're not trying to push you. We're just trying to keep it on track. Because look at it this way. All right, things have changed because of all the different laws that keep changing with mortgages and all of these different things that the loan officers have to do. We've got a couple of huge hurdles. Number one is your inspection, okay? So you want to get to it, like Eric was saying, as soon as you can. Even if you have 10 days, you don't wait till day 9 because it says that in 10 days you will be done. Well, that means we are either completely on the same page where you're purchasing it or moving forward, or you're canceling. Because if you just have an inspection and you don't respond to them in that 10-day period, at least in Minnesota, it is assumed under the contract that you're moving forward and buying this house. So then at that point, you could have an earnest money issue. More likely not, but it does happen. So to Eric's point, the sooner you can have the inspection, the more time you have to negotiate. Then the second piece of that is the appraisal. Well, we're not going to order the appraisal for you until the inspection is done and we're all in agreement. Because why should you also pay for an appraisal on a home you may not purchase? But having said that, the other piece of this then is we don't know how long it's going to take to get that appraisal. What if it takes another 10 to 20 days? How are we going to get your house closed in 45 days and get your butt into that new place by the 30th of September or whatever date you choose if we don't stay working on that timeline? So
I agree.
Yeah, so that's where the time of the essence is so important, in the same manner in which it's time is of the essence for all of the signed contracts from the seller's side.
And I think to even add to that, one of the other pieces of the puzzle is, let's say we get your inspection all resolved and you get renegotiated with your seller and you're happy, the seller's happy, and we get the appraiser out there quickly and promptly. The mortgage company does a great job, the appraiser cooperates, that's all great. We also have to allot for time that if you're doing an FHA loan or a VA loan, or sometimes even with the conventional loan, depending on the age of the property, you may have an appraisal deficiency. And I hate that word, it's very negative. But basically the appraiser may be stating that there are certain aspects of the house that have to be corrected right away so they can okay the appraisal. Now typically it could be railings, broken concrete, could be glass, paint that needs to be scraped and removed and repainted. So things that can be worked out. But again, if we don't keep the process going and we don't get that appraisal quick and get the results back, we may have a very small window to fix these deficiencies before we close. So granted, you don't want to get your appraisal done 5 days before you're supposed to close, have them return the appraisal 2 days before you're supposed to close, and the appraiser said, hey, there's a couple deficiencies here for your FHA loan, Mr. Buyer. You need to go out there, repaint. This window needs replaced. It just makes everything a mad scramble. Sometimes with your cooperation with your seller, it can be done. Sometimes it ends up delaying closing. And as a buyer, you don't want that. And we don't want that for you, because that's a hit toward our ego. We want to get you there on time. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
just trust in the process and trust in your real estate agent that we will do everything we can to keep you on track. You don't need to worry.
Absolutely.
It's like driving a car. You don't need to know how the engine is put together. You just need to know how to put it in drive.
Thank
We'll
goodness.
take care of the rest for you. Yeah, no kidding. Any final thoughts on this one, Eric?
No. I just think I think I wouldn't want to alarm a potential home buyer. Don't worry about all these dates and all that. A great realtor is going to manage that for you. But I will add one last thing. When your realtor reminds you to get things done after you become under agreement, you got to get that mortgage started, and we got to get that home inspection started. It's imperative to really act on there. We can keep reminding you, but the longer you delay this process, the less of a chance we have of closing on time.
And that just gave me another idea. One other thing I also want to say. When your loan officer calls you or emails you and tells you to send them something, do it. Okay? They don't derive any amount of pleasure from bugging you for items. And you're going to have to jump through hoops. You may even have to give a pint of blood. But if you want the house bad enough, you will send the information. It's not like they are targeting you and going, okay, well, Jim and Mary Smith, we're going to mess with those guys.
Right.
It's painful for everybody. So please do us all a favor, and yourself. You need to be Johnny on the spot when people ask you for something, because I'm telling you, it will keep you from getting delayed at your closing. It'll make everything go smoother, and the whole experience will be so much more pleasant.
Yeah, and your mortgage rep wants an easy process for you. And your underwriters are not out to get you. They're not. They're doing their job, and they truly are trying to. If they ask for 5 items, they probably could have asked for 10, but they're not doing that. They're asking for the most important items that they can get you through the process for. So we want to accommodate them as fast as we can.
Yeah, so think of your loan officer as the guy standing behind the counter at a gas station. Prices of the gas go up. Don't yell at that guy. He just works there. So when someone wants this extra information, the loan officer is not conspiring against you. It is an underwriting thing that they want through the bank. All right?
That's exactly
so there you
right.
go. Okay, guys. Well, until next time, we will see you again soon. We've got what's coming up? As is. We got to talk about that. That's an interesting subject. So that's our next week, and we will see you guys again. Thanks so much for your support. We are on Spreaker, and we are also on Facebook and YouTube. And if you are not in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, or you're not in the Pittsburgh area, and you're looking for a buyer's agent, you don't know where to turn, call Eric or myself or email us. We will help you at no charge find an agent that will fit you.
A good agent.
You in your area.
You bet. You bet. All right.
So, see you again soon. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in.
See y'all.
Bye.